Here we are again, bro.
Man, two of them. What's going on?
What are we talking about today?
I think a good one to talk about today is how to deal with walking in blind to a shoot.
That's good.
So, as the one who I would say is the most up to date and current, oh man, you always walk into shoots where, to some degree, it's blind.
Everybody has gone into a blind shoot and you have no idea. As much you can ask all the questions in the world.
Yeah.
There's times, let's just say you're shooting out of state or far, you know, how do you tackle that, right?
Yeah. We say, hey, send me a picture of the room, and they send you a picture of the ceiling or something or whatever. You know, there's always a level of going in blind, and there's sometimes you're going in completely blind.
Yeah.
So I think a good thing to talk about is like, how do we approach a blind shoot? And this can go from the one-man, team to actually trying to build a production. Like, how would you go against that as what you're facing?
Yeah.
Right. I think there's a couple aspects to it. You have what variables do you know? That's a big thing to know. First of all, try to get as much information as you can. Pre-production. It's one thing we just talked about. What would I do different in our last podcast, right? One thing I would do different is I would start emphasizing pre-production a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Because when we started really focusing on pre-production, I think that's when we were able to level up what we were doing.
Yeah.
As far as total production, right?
When you can go in and execute a plan, it's a lot more efficient and productive. Mm-hmm. When you walk in and you're starting to go, what is our plan? It's a little different.
Which happens.
Everybody, I don't care who you are and where you've been. You've walked onto, whether you're a one-man band or you've into a crew, you walk into something and you're like, well, what are we going to do? Right?
Yeah.
So,
it happens to us all the time.
Yeah.
I think now it seems to happen to us more when it's a shoot that you and I are just like, hey, we need to go get this shoot taken real care of or taken care of real quick. What are we going to do? Let's throw something together because we got to get this today, right? But it used to happen a lot with other shoots, and like we've learned how to talk. And I think the first thing is try to get as much information as you can with whoever the client is, whether that's a producer or an agency or the owner of a business that you're working with or whatever.
The project organizer, whatever it is, like a cell phone video or photo is going to help you greatly to understand what you're going to need, lighting, how do you need to control. And so I think when walking into anything, obviously if you can location scout, do it. If you can't, there's a lot of questions to ask, and those questions first and foremost are, hey, do you know where we're shooting, the location, the details, what time of day?
Time of day is big.
Those are big. What's the sun doing? And these things. If you're in a room and it's inside, where that sun is at relative to if there's windows, how many windows, what's doing, where do you have any idea where the talent's going to be? Sometimes we've gone into shoots and they're like, we want it in this room, in this place, and then we're going to shoot at this time. There's other times it's like, we have this massive building and you guys can choose a room, and you're like,
do what you want.
This is difficult.
Yeah.
For example, one of the times we were hired to do a ton of interviews for this really cool, like upcoming leaders in the city, and it was at a hotel, and it was literally like, here's the room you have, and it was the most boring room we've ever seen.
It was terrible.
And of course, they didn't have any pictures of it because they didn't know what was available. And so you walk into that. What you and I literally pitched the idea and sold them to open a new room so that there was character to it. There was a little more excitement, and it allowed us to really, make the shot more interesting and really produce something that looked great instead of looked mediocre. And I think anytime you can do that, it's important. So when you walk into, I would say walk in blind on a set, like the more you can find out beforehand, obviously the better. But when you can't, I think is really what we're talking into. And I'd say, to segue into that is, how do you tackle that? And then why?
So me, if I'm walking into, I think there's a important delineation of indoor versus outdoor.
Yeah,
right.
for
Outdoor, there's a really easy way that you can make it a lot easier, and that's bring way more stuff than you could ever possibly need. Which it's easy when you have the stuff. When you don't have the stuff, it's like, well, I have 2 lights and a tripod. Like you're in for a fight. But like on an outdoor, Google Earth is a huge thing. Like look at where am I going to be shooting this, right? Go to Google Earth, see where the sun direction is going to be going. Like that stuff is really big to help out with an outdoor shoot, because then you can at least understand how the light's going to be interacting with what you're going into, depending on time of day. Obviously, weather dependent. There's a lot of things you have to focus in on as well. But the first thing I'll do on an outdoor shoot is go to Google Earth. On an indoor shoot, again, you just bring a lot of things. Bring as many bring as many lights as you can fit in that you have. Sometimes I remember the first we did a podcast on the building whitetails with Josh. At that point, we brought every light we had, and thank God we did, because we used every light we brought. I think that having diffusion, having lighting options, having ways of tackling or overpowering light, if possible.
Yeah,
having all those ways.
The tip I would say is the more you can control, the more you can really build and do what you want to create, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the more tools you have to do that, obviously the better. Now, we've also been on documentary shoots where you're running gun and just trying to capture whatever's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really complicated, a different kind of shoot. So it's kind of different how you tackle it. But I think one of that is like, if there's anything I've learned is just because it's inconvenient doesn't mean that you shouldn't bring it. Like sometimes I do this a lot. I'll overbring everything, and how many times that actually ends up saving or doing. And a lot of times it doesn't, but it's better to have and than not, the need, right? And so
I'm trying to remember what shoot it was that we were just doing. It was for the documentary. We were doing a shoot at the main lady that is going to be building a lot of the story. We're doing a shoot at her house, and we were kind of laughing about it because the night before we're like, okay, what are we going to bring? And we had a little list of what we were going to bring, and then we met at your house to head out from your house. And when I was loading my car up, I had thrown a bunch of stuff extra in. I was like, well, we might need this. And then I got to your house, and holy cow, the truck was loaded down.
And I was like, I thought we might make this simple.
I know. And on the night before, I was like, we need this to be a pretty simple, shoot. We don't want to bring too much. And
but what we did notice is we asked for photos, we asked for those things, and the variables were, what is the sun doing? How's it bouncing off? We don't know what outside looks like. How's it coming through the windows? What, and those are the things that is like, okay, maybe we should throw this in. Maybe we should throw this in. And
we didn't use everything.
Yeah.
But we had it, and we went into that knowing that we were going to be able to build what we wanted to build or what needed to be built for that part of the video.
Yeah.
And so it worked out great. And there are times that we have used everything we threw in.
Yeah. And how many times you wish you shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? And that's the situation I would say try to get out of. And so walking into something blind, try to be as prepared as possible. How many times like throwing a roll of Duvetine in a case can literally save everything, and that doesn't take up a ton of space. And so whatever, like how do you control the uncontrollable when you don't know what they're there? There's certain places to walk into. This last year I got a shoot for a music fest, and it was awesome. Like the people, it was like 120 something bands, interviewing all of these high profile, artists and stuff. And the place they gave us to shoot was nuts. Like it was like, why are we shooting in here? It just was. And what we actually cut more light than we actually put in that space. And it literally
something that you find you do a lot.
Oh yeah. We spent an hour and a half cutting light from 30 windows just to get it into a place. And by the time that thing was done, it was phenomenal. And I was just like, it was fun, but I'm going, if we didn't bring all of that, there's nothing we could have done to make that space look like it needed to.
Yeah, you're trying to fight light in places that you can't have light to be able to create the effect you want, right? I do find most of the time you're cutting light because it's a lot easier to cut light than overpower light.
Yeah.
One. Two, you're shaping light, and you shape light by cutting it most often, I feel like. I think that a big deal and a big part of this is to relieve the stress of going in somewhere blind is to be confident, right? And you build confidence by understanding what you're working with. You or I can shoot natural light if we need to and make it look good if we need to. Now, would we almost always prefer to be able to shoot controlled lighting? Absolutely. But there's also nothing like a Kansas sunset. You know what I'm saying? Like there are shots you can only get with natural light being at least the motivation.
Yeah. Well, and even as you're talking, I'm thinking of like 3 different scenarios. For example, one scenario is I can bring an SKB on an airplane. That's the only thing I can bring in there. What am I bringing and why? And then there's another scenario where I can drive for 2 hours, and we're going into a scenario where I don't know. Those are going to be completely different.
Right.
But I would also say in this scenario that I don't have a whole lot to bring, there's a lot you can do to set yourself up for success. For example, bring a diffuser so that if you're shooting outside and you just need a diffuse light, find somebody or something to lean this against to create a space. If you need a bounce light, anything white, like learn how to use sheets, find things cheap, stop by a local Walmart. How can you set yourself up for a better success than to walk into a shot and just looks like garbage and nobody's excited about that? Clients discouraged and doesn't see the value in what you bring because you don't have all your tools. Like, and we say this a lot on here, but like learn lighting basics is, yes, that's a good principle, but like things to think about is like what is the most powerful source of light on that thing? Do you have control of that light? How to motivate that light so it looks natural? Like learn some of these basic principles of these things. A key light, a rim light. How do I separate my subject from the background that is just getting lost? Like you start to learn those details, all of a sudden your production level just goes whoa. And I think that's where it gets fun, but it's also like you can set yourself up for the unknowns with success, even with bare minimum, with knowledge of understanding those things and real basic tools. Now, if I go on a job that I get to drive 2 hours and I load my car up with as much as I can or whatever, that's a little bit different. And it's still maybe a blind thing, but how I do that.
You have options.
We were at a job recently that both of us were pretty discouraged with how much room was in this thing and how we ended up bouncing light to create such a natural feel that we made sure it didn't look lit because it actually changed the way we first initially thought we would shoot this video. And so I think that's what is fun. One of my favorite things to do, this space right here was a naked space, and getting to build that into what it is now is actually why I love doing what I do. Is like you get to overcome these obstacles and create and light and design, but then all of those little things, especially the independent filmmaker walking onto a set, like that stuff's invaluable. So
yeah, I think a takeaway from what you were just saying, I think the biggest thing is find out what you can't control, and then if you have the confidence and the knowledge to be able to work around that to build the rest of it with whatever you have. There's so many shoots that I've been on, probably more than what you do, because a lot of what you do is more controlled. I mean, I built the first half of my career on natural light, almost natural light only. But I know I can confidently go into almost any situation and get footage that at the very least is very usable, right? Yeah. Now, again, you can always make natural light, you can enhance. And so you can always make natural light look even better, I feel like.
You can neg fill in
the number of times I've neg filled with
a dark tree, whatever. Like there's amazing ways to actually get creative to understanding everything around you. The sun is the greatest source of light the world has ever known. It is what we get. Every single day it's faithful to show up. And sometimes it's diffused by light. All of those things are going to dictate what you do and how you do it. And understanding that is invaluable.
Well, and I think even, you were talking about neg fill with a tree, learning how to, we talk a lot about shadow side. How many times we built a shot around the foreground using shadow that it might not make the subject perfectly lit, but it builds it to build the emotion of the shot or to build what you're trying to portray in that specific scene or whatever, because you're using the way that the sun's interacting with not just the subject, but also the environment that's building, I don't want to say a perfect shot, but building a well-balanced shot just off of literally nothing but knowing how to position your camera and how to position things in the frame.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's be honest, we've all been in a situation that is less than ideal and just the shot sucks. But understanding a little bit of those things can help. And I think what's exciting for me right now is all the people who are learning lighting. They're seeing the excitement of it. They're seeing the importance of it. It's becoming more affordable, and that's awesome. There are so many situations that you don't have the ability to light the perfect setup with an awesome softbox or an 8x8 or something that you're used to using. But you can still take those principles with you anywhere you go. And really, like, I think whether that's outside or inside, like understanding that is the foundation of everything, and then overcoming that. And the other things I would say is maybe one day we'll do this is here's our travel kit. If I can travel with one box on a plane and a backpack, what are we bringing?
Yeah. I think an important thing to do, this is going to be a shorter podcast. We're wanting to wrap it up a little bit faster than the last one, but I think we've talked about, how do you get ready for all, a blind shoot or whatever. And a lot of, I think, of what we're saying is learn more, build knowledge. And then from that, you can take that knowledge, that experience to be able to build the kit you need for whatever scenario you're going to, right? So what would you do to be able, if you didn't know, like if you were coming into this not blind, but like you haven't built the knowledge of working with light, you haven't built the knowledge of how, like your cameras or whatever, and knowing what your camera is good for, how would you build that? If you got a new camera you don't know anything about and you didn't really understand light, what are you going to do to learn that? Like, it's
good. I search out things like what we're doing. The whole reason I don't need to do a podcast, but we get asked a lot of questions on why and how we tackle something.
Neither one of us are looking to be in front of a camera.
Yeah. And so, so what I mean by that is, education's invaluable in every aspect. And so I say this all the time, when I get a new lens, I don't do anything outside of that lens. I put it on my camera for 2 weeks, learn every aspect of it, what I love about it, what I hate about it. And then all of a sudden it becomes part of my arsenal. I know when to use it. Right. And the same thing goes for when I get a new camera. I'm researching the good, the bad, the ugly. What is its downfalls? What is it good for? I'm going through the menu. I'll spend more time with my camera before my first shoot than anything. So that way I'm not fumbling around with it. Yeah. I know how many people I know have bought a camera and trying to use it the next day, and they're over here like, Matt, do you know how to do this, 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 and this? And I'm like, bud, like, this isn't the time. I don't, you know what I mean? And so I think those are things that you just got to be intentional. So the word's intentional, be intentional about that. But like the practical side of that is obviously YouTube's invaluable. Find that resource that you can trust and go back to that's helping you produce the right. For example, if I don't know about lighting, I mean, you could probably count on a large lighting company to teach you some really awesome basics.
Right.
That's why we haven't done that quite yet. We're going to do some on-set breakdowns and things, but like that's important. And then, shot breakdowns, but there's guys that are doing these kind of things that, I mean, they've gone years and years and years. I want to listen to them while I'm in my elementary stage, and it helps you get there faster.
Right.
And then also,
and we've learned from some people, right?
Yeah,
and I think that being able to learn is important. I think another thing that I might add to what you're saying is find somebody. We talked about building a team on the last one, but find somebody that is just as eager to learn as you are. I feel like it's been very interesting watching the way we work together and pushing ideas off each other and all these things. Like, we're trying to learn every set we go on. It's a different scenario. You can't, when you go into a set blind, like, you're always going to be blind to an extent. There's always something to learn from every shoot, right?
Yeah.
And I learned things from you on a shoot, just like, how are you doing XYZ, right? Yeah. And you learn things from me on a shoot of like how is, again, what we get to with workflow again, right? But like, have somebody that's excited about learning with you, and then it makes it more fun, right? It's not super fun to try to learn lighting when you're trying to shoot a I don't know, a tree in the middle of a forest, right? That's not very fun.
And to go along with that is practice, not even for work. Like go out and shoot and know every little thing. Like I've literally done like the hardest challenges I can think of is like, how do I make this whatever cactus look interesting and shoot an entire little segment about a cactus and how to make it interesting, because all of a sudden it's very easy to forget those little, those little things that just make all the details. And so if you can do that with learning gear and doing those things. For example, I want to just, and it's not the, what is that name? Satellite software that we have. Yeah, like that software is super cool. I mean, I wish it had more video elements to it, but right now, like photography wise, you can get in there and create every set and go, why do I like this shot? Oh, I put a light over here. It looks flat and boring. Why? Because there's no depth to this. And all of a sudden you move it around, change lenses, do this stuff.
Like, holy cow.
And next thing you know, you and I do this I do this for fun to practice. Like, how can I make something look super unique? And it's incredible how I've used that on a set. And I'm like, I'm playing with software at home that actually gives me very lifelike
results.
And
there are times, especially for like talking heads, where we've done that as a mock-up, essentially, of what we're going for in a lighting diagram, to build these lighting diagrams of this is the look I want to create, as an idea to the producer or whoever's paying that. Like, is this what you want? This is what I understand you want. Is this what you want? And they can refine it or whatever, and then we're not going in blind.
Yeah. In that situation, and I'll wrap it up and we'll be done. But in that situation that we went to in that hotel and shot those interviews, actually the people that we were wanting to put us against a wall. They were like, no, I think this would be better. We used that program, sent them screenshots, and they're like, yes, we love that. Because we recreated the room, we recreated the lights, we recreated everything, the conference table. And they were like, why would you shoot that in the middle of the room with this? And it was like to show the professionalism of the people. And it's not that they just didn't see the vision, right?
Right.
So being able to use tools that help you, make you better, understanding those things. And so, to go back to the very beginning, like, what am I bringing on set when I don't know? Like, education and knowledge is invaluable to overcome any obstacle. And it allows you to understand the tools to walk on set.
I would say the most important thing is, and I don't know how much this goes, and like I said, we got about 10 minutes, but I say this all the time. I'm not a creative person. I'm a technical person who builds shots based off of technicalities, right? And I
get all these like, what if we try this? What if we try this?
I don't feel like I'm a very creative person. I'm sitting across one of the most creative people in the world, but when I'm going into something like that hotel room, right, or that hotel conference center, when I walk in, I see that shot with the depth that we ended up shooting. That's not because I'm super creative. It's because over time I've learned you want layers, you want shadow, you want to create different color contrast. Like, I've learned that by experience. And I think the most important thing you can do, to what you were saying, not everything has to be for pay. Sometimes just go out and shoot just to get better, right? I think I just saw there was a video, I didn't watch all of it, but there was a video that just came out, and it was talking about work for free. Right. And I don't really believe in working for free, but shoot for free, right? Do things that are free. And I think the idea the thing was like, get yourself in the door by working for free. And that's all fine and good. But what we're saying is, if you want to learn,
sometimes your payment is invaluable knowledge that you'll carry the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's actually better than the $150, $300 paycheck you might have got that day or whatever. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I mean, that kind of stuff stays with you. I mean, and that's the beauty of it all. And so, and I would say understanding, like, hey, if I bounce this light and I use this direction outside to just calm down a little bit of the harshness of the shadows and the light behind them, or how many people every day I see somebody hold a phone up and the sun's right here and they're like, yeah, face the sun so I can get good light on your thing. I'm like, just a little bit of 15 minutes of YouTube would actually teach
Fix
you,
that.
such, and it's just incredible to me how many people we know in amazing industries, and some of them are actually producing good work, but they can't even explain why,
Right.
because they've
Yeah,
never
they just
taken
like
the
it.
time.
And those people, I think, are the true creatives.
Yeah.
Right. They just,
Yeah.
wow, this is cool. I don't care why. It's just, this
just-
looks good.
yeah.
And I mean, there's some thing we talked about, like there are people that I would rather edit content than us, right, on projects. And it's just because of how creative they can be. But it's funny because they reach out to us like, hey, I don't know how to do this. How do you do this? Right. And I think that goes back to building that network of people that you can work with that complement
Yeah.
your weaknesses, you
Yeah.
know. But
Well, and the cool thing, like, I think you and I are both like, okay, we're going to bring something that we can reflect. I might be wearing something and I'm purposely
absorb.
using black to neg fill that I might have to take this off and,
Right.
hold it up to somebody's face just off camera for 45 seconds just to make more of an interesting shot. Like, we do those things,
100%.
and it's strategic on all of this stuff. I don't know how many times I've jumped on a plane wearing multiple layers of things, knowing that one of them's at least a bounce and one of them's an egg fill, and we're on a 6-hour shoot to jump back on something else to do. There are. I know that sounds nuts, but that's a true. I know that
it's just thinking ahead.
Yeah.
I had a question. We'll get more into it on probably in a later video. But like, how do you pack for a shoot where you only have limited gear, right? And you don't have, might not have power, might not have whatever, because we do a lot of remote shoots, and a lot of it is you're using things for multiple purposes.
Oh man, I'll tell you right now. I watch, Discovery Channel, some of these things. I don't know if you've seen Mine Rescue, and there are times where I'm looking at these shots going, I get it. It's documentary work. That's not an excuse for crappy shot footage. Just truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love the show. It's good content, whatever. Doesn't mean that you can't take a little bit of pride in an interview and use the things around you to, and again,
I love the
get flack
saying
for that, but
story trumps. What was it? Story trumps. I don't want to say skill. Story trumps like the perfect shot, but imagine story with good shots.
oh yeah.
Right? It doesn't have. Not every shot's going to be the best shot. You are going to have some shots that are more interesting, more, especially in a documentary or run and gun scenario. But why? Yes, I want to build story. Absolutely, story trumps all. Right? But add good, interesting shots to that, and understand how to build a good shot in any situation.
Great story with crappy audio sucks, right?
Yeah.
So you want to do that, and great story with a
mediocre video.
yeah. It's like, okay, now I'll play it in the background, and it's like, but all of a sudden you get the perfect storm. You're captivated, and you're creating content that the world wants to see. Like, that's the creative I want to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so again, I think that's the joy of. I think you and I have been in every scenario in that sense of literally jumping on planes without sleep, and you can bring one camera, one lens. What do you do? But then you look back at the footage and we're like, it wasn't
Pretty decent.
It was good. We like that. There's time. I mean, there's the shoulda, coulda, wouldas are always in part of my like, dang it, wish I would have known that. Ooh, wish we would have brought that. And that's just part of it. But there's, if there's anything I would say is just like, have the knowledge to make the good decisions, and that goes whether you've been in this for 2 months or 20 years. Like, and it never stops. That's the best part. We work with a local grip and gaffer place here in Wichita, Kansas Grip. Man, they're just awesome people, and what I love is every single time we are on a shoot or do something, they are serving the space. But then at the same time, like, really understanding a scenario. They will come up with a creative idea that you never thought of, that you're like, huh. Like, you think you need this really expensive gear, and they just did this with a, fill in the blank, because they're super creative to adapt and overcome whether they have something or not. And so, like,
And they know their gear.
Oh yeah, and they know it well. But how many times it's like, we don't have time. Let's just say the time's the factor. They will literally give you 4 solutions to an option of a DP in a matter of seconds, and you're like, and they're going, how do you want to spend your time? This one, this one, this one, or this one? Like it begins to make you think of in a different way as well.
Yeah.
And so like working with these guys really do like this is awesome. And so you know, light coming through a window. What if we actually just bounce this off? It will actually save us time, so we have more time for the next setup that we know is going to be really important. This one's just a pickup, or what? You know what I'm saying? Like those kind of things.
Time management's big. Yeah.
So
I think so. We're getting really close on time. I would say let's wrap. Go over again a real quick review of what we talked about. If you're going into a shoot, again, there's different levels and layers and whatever. But if you're going into a shoot blind, what's your top 3 things that you're going to look for if you're going into a shoot blind?
So, as a DP, I'm going to make sure I can cover any scenario, wide, medium, tight. I'm going to make sure that I have the knowledge of coming into an area of just understanding lighting, so that I can at least with what I have, I can create something that I'm at least okay with. Yeah. And then the last thing is I'm going to make every tool I have stretch to the ability so that I can bring value of why somebody should.
Are you going to use a zoom lens?
It's not going to probably happen.
28 to 70.
Yeah, I like that lens, but now I have, you know, other ones that I like better.
No, I agree. I think the biggest thing that I would say is always work to learn more, because your biggest tool is your brain, right? Yeah. Your biggest tool is the knowledge you've built up and the experience that you've gained. Yeah. And that it's very much, I don't know how many times I've been on long hikes in the mountains or whatever, and you're dead tired, you're dehydrated, you got a 60-pound pack and you're carrying a camera and you're worn out, but you can't stop, right? And so it's literally just, I've thought to myself, next step. And before you know it, you're over that mountain and you're working up the next one, right? But it's just like that. This little piece of knowledge that you gain here, then here, then here, and then before you know it, your world's past where you were a year ago.
And that's why I love having a partner in crime, that we literally are always learning together. It's like, hey, learn this, pass it on, do this, and it's growing together. And then what it makes me want to do is continue.
Right.
Like when you're on a journey yourself, you know, that mountain's a lot harder to climb.
It is.
And when you have somebody going, hey, keep up, because we're about to do something great.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Like that's real deal. So yeah, I think that's important. And when it comes down to it, like you're always going to have those scenarios, and so the better prepared you are, the more you're going to be able to overcome them. And sometimes I hate tolerating. You know, the both of us are this way. We don't want to just.
You're
settle.
more so than me.
We don't want to settle.
Yeah.
Like how instead of settling, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I was watching a show the other day, and they were making, it was like actually a movie, and it was like they were like, oh, it's that Fly Me to the Moon movie, and they're recreating the moon landing, and he says, man, your DP's taking forever, and he's like, you're never gonna find a DP who moves fast, you know. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, like, you know, you're always coming against time. You're always coming against some sort of mountain that is going to be in your way. Is how do you overcome that, right? So that's what it comes down to.
Heck yeah. All right, guys, we're going to come out with another one pretty soon, hopefully. Keep asking us questions.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. Ask us questions. We love it. This is why we're doing it. Like I said, we're not itching to be in front of a camera. Neither one of us really enjoy being in front of a camera, but we do want to help. We get a lot of questions.
We do want to get on the set, go through gear. If you guys have questions, we have some new fun gear. Actually, quite a bit of it. But we just haven't got to show anybody. So, anyway.